The Red Sox take on the Indians, 4:05 p.m. Eastern first pitch. Boston is minus 145, totals 9. And if you like Cleveland in an upset at home here, they're plus $1.25 for some money line cash. Now the Indians are also minus $1.25, catching the 1.5 on the run line. Cal Quantrill starting for Cleveland, Nathan Eovaldi for Boston. And following a winning day of premium sports picks on my BrockPage.com website yesterday, we also improved to 9-1 in our last 10 Major League Baseball tier package picks on that very same page. And the good news is we have another Major League Baseball tier package pick going off here this evening. We're also hitting at 64% in our last 29 extra daily picks on that very same website. And if you want to access today's extra daily pick, it's only going to cost you just $2.99. Now, we currently have over 850 members who are signed up and active on that BrockPage.com website. And if you want to see which one of these free YouTube picks that I'm actually betting on personally, there's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for a membership on that page. And once again, that's BrockPage.com. Now, Boston's Nathan Eovaldi, he's got double-digit wins thus far in the year, 3.72 ERA and a 1.17 whip. Now, the big righty has also struck out 147 batters. And speaking of strikeouts, this Boston pitching staff averages nearly double-digit strikeouts a game on the road. Meanwhile, offensively, the Bo Sox are in the top 3 in hits. Rafael Devers is amongst the league leaders in RBI. The third baseman has knocked in 94 runners and has also hit 30 home runs. They're taking on a Cleveland squad who's in the bottom 10 in hits on average per game. This Cleveland lineup is also in the bottom 5 in walks at the plate. Then when it comes to the total in this one, Cleveland went 60% to the under in their last 10 ball games, 4-3 to the under in their last 7 at Progressive Field. Meanwhile, the Bo Sox saw 3 out of their last 4 road games stay under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Boston Red Sox minus 145 and the under 9 runs. Next ball game, Yankees A's 4:07 Eastern Standard Time. Oakland's minus $1.15, numbers 8.5. Frankie Montas for the A's, Nestor Cortez for New York. Now Cortez has suffered just 1 loss through 56 1/3 innings of work. The lefty's got himself a 2.56 ERA and a 1.07 whip. The red-hot Yankees have won their last 13 straight, and they're just 4 games out of first place in the AL East. They're also holding their opponents to only 7.3 hits a game. They're taking on an Oakland squad who's on a 6-game losing streak themselves, 2-10 straight up in their last dozen. This Oakland lineup's in the bottom 10 in home scoring, bottom 5 in home hits. They also have Frankie Montas on the bump here today, who's got himself a 1.24 whip, along with 9 losses on the year. Now, when it comes to the number in this one, 7 out of Oakland's last 10 ball games stayed under the line. Meanwhile, the Yankees have gone 37-27 to the under in all of their road games this year. I'm going to lean toward the New York Yankees plus $1 and the under 8.5. Next contest, Royals Mariners, 4:10 p.m. East. Seattle's minus 150, totals 8.5. Tyler Anderson for Seattle, Daniel Lynch for Kansas City. Now Lynch comes into today's start with a 4.74 ERA and a 1.53 whip. Kansas City's winning just 40% of their road games, and they're in the bottom 3 in walks allowed per contest. This Royals pitching staff is also in the bottom 10 in runs allowed. They're taking on a Seattle club who's 37-27 straight up at T-Mobile Park. They're also in the top 10 in the majors in fewest home walks allowed. Tyler Anderson's coming into today's start with a 1.19 whip. He's also got 105 strikeouts. When it comes to the scoring in this one, Seattle's 35-29 to the under at home. Meanwhile, the Royals went 60% to the under in their last 10 themselves, 60% to the under in all of their road games for the entire season. I'm going to lean toward the Seattle Mariners minus 150 and the under 8.5. Next ball game, Diamondbacks, Phillies, 6:05 Eastern Standard Time. The Philadelphia Phillies are minus 210. Totals 8.5. Kyle Gibson for Philadelphia. Humberto Mejia for Arizona. Now, the D-backs have successfully cashed in on the run line in 7 out of their last 10 ball games. 5-3 against the number in their last 8 on the road. The D-backs are in the top 10 in the league in road walks at the plate. And they're led by Josh Rojas, who's batting .277, along with an .810 OPS. Arizona's taking on a Phillies club who dropped 7 out of their last 10 themselves. Just 1-3 straight up in their last 4 at Citizens Bank Park. This Philadelphia lineup's in the bottom 10 in home scoring, bottom 10 in home hits. They also have Kyle Gibson on the bump here today, who's got a 1.32 whip in a short time with the Phillies. And total-wise, 3 out of the Fightin's last 4 home games got over the line. Meanwhile, the D-backs went 60% to the over in their last 10 outings themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Arizona Diamondbacks plus 1.5 and the over 8.5 runs. Next contest, Blue Jays, Tigers, 6:10 Eastern start time. Toronto's minus $2, totals 9.5. Alek Manoah for Toronto, Jose Urena for Detroit. Now, Urena's just 2-8 on the year with a 6.19 ERA. The righty's also got himself a 1.65 whip. This Detroit pitching staff is in the bottom 10 in hits allowed, and they're striking out just 7.8 batters a game. Meanwhile, offensively, the Tigers are also in the bottom 10 in home scoring. Now, they're taking on a Blue Jays squad who currently leads the majors in fewest road strikeouts at the plate. And of course, when you're talking about this Toronto offensive attack, you got to mention Vlad Guerrero, who's batting .311 with 36 home runs and 91 RBI. Now, the Slugger's also got himself a .999 OPS. Meanwhile, Marcus Semion's hit 32 home runs, along with 77 ribbies. This Toronto lineup's in the top 3 in hits. They also have Alek Manoah on the mound here today. He's 5-2 with a .318 ERA and a 1.10 whip. The righties also struck out 78 batters in just 68 innings of work. Now, total-wise, 7 out of Toronto's last 10 ball games stayed under the line. Meanwhile, Detroit 7-3 to the under in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Toronto Blue Jays minus 1.5 and the under 9.5 runs. Next contest, Reds Marlins, 6:10 p.m. Eastern first pitch. Cincinnati's minus $1.15, total 7.5. Vlad Gutierrez for Cincinnati, Sandy Alcantara for Miami. And as bad as Sandy's record looks, he's actually had some really good stuff this year. Alcantara comes into today's contest with a .335 ERA and a 1.12 whip. The righties also struck out 146 batters. The Marlins won 2 out of their last 3 ball games, and they're in the top 10 in fewest home hits allowed. Now, the Fish are also holding their opponents to just 3.8 runs a game at Lone Depot Park. They're taking on a Reds club who actually lost 2 out of their last 4 themselves. And believe it or not, the Reds walk more batters than any other team in the majors, certainly showing some control problems as a pitching staff as a whole. The Cincinnati pitching staff allows over 4.1 free passes a game on the road. Meanwhile, offensively, this Reds lineup is averaging nearly double-digit strikeouts a game at the plate. And as good as Gutierrez has looked in many different starts, he's walked 35 batters and has a 1.29 whip. Now, total-wise, 7 out of the Marlins' last 10 ball games stayed under the line, 4-2 to the under in their last 6 at home. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, the Reds went 80% to the under in their last 10 themselves, 3-1 to the under in their last 4 road games. I'm going to lean toward the Miami Marlins plus $1 and the under 7.5. Next contest, Cardinals, Pirates, 7:05 Eastern start time. The St. Louis Cardinals are minus 190, totals 8.5. Adam Wainwright for St. Louis, Stephen Brault for Pittsburgh. Despite very limited action this season, Stephen Brault comes into today's matchup with a 1.93 ERA and a 1.07 whip. Excuse me. The Pirates have won 5 out of their last 8 ball games, and their lineup's in the top 5 in fewest strikeouts at the plate, Brian Reynolds has hit 21 home runs and knocked in 77. As a matter of fact, the outfielder Reynolds, he's in the top 20 in both batting average and OPS. Now, Pittsburgh's taking on a St. Louis club who has a losing road record. The Cards are also in the bottom 5 in scoring on average per game, bottom 10 in road hits. And number-wise here, St. Louis is 13-9 to the over in their divisional road games. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh's 15-12 to the over in their divisional contests at PNC Park. I'm going to lean toward the Pittsburgh Pirates plus 1.5 and the over 8.5 runs. Next ball game, Rays, O's, 7:05 Eastern Standard Time. The Tampa Bay Rays are minus 175, totals 9.5. Michael Wacha for Tampa Bay. John Means for Baltimore. And as good as Johnny Means has been, he still comes into today's contest with a 5-6 record. The last place O's have the worst record in Major League Baseball. They've won just 40 games on the season, and they currently find themselves 47 games below 500. This Baltimore pitching staff allows more runs per contest than any other team in the majors. They're taking on a first-place Tampa team who's winning over 70% of their divisional ball games on the road. And speaking of being on the road, this Rays lineup is actually leading the majors in scoring away from home per contest. Brandon Lowe's hit 30 home runs and knocked in 76. Meanwhile, his teammate Austin Meadows, he's 7th in the league in RBI with 88 of them. And of course, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Tampa Bay saw 8 out of their last 10 ball games get over the line. Meanwhile, the O's went 60% to the over in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Tampa Bay Rays minus 175 and the over 9.5. Next contest, Astros Rangers, 7:05 Eastern first pitch. The Houston Astros are minus 240, numbers 9. Framber Valdez for Houston, Colby Allard for Texas. Allard's just 3-10 on the year, along with a 4.86 ERA. The last place Rangers have the second fewest wins in the American League, and they find themselves 40 games below 500. This Texas lineup is dead last in the majors in home walks at the plate. They're also averaging just 3.8 runs a game offensively. Now they're taking on a first-place Houston club who's actually leading the majors in runs and hits. Michael Brantley's batting .320 at the plate, and Jordan Alvarez, he has 86 RBI on the year. Meanwhile, pitching-wise, Framber Valdez is 8-4 with a 2.94 ERA and 92 strikeouts. And when it comes to the total in this one, Houston's last 4 straight road games all stayed under the number. Meanwhile, the Rangers saw 3 out of their last 4 ball games at Globe Life Field stay under the line. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the Houston Astros minus 1.5 and the under 9 runs. Next ball game, Cubs versus the White Sox, 7:10 p.m. Eastern start time. The Chicago White Sox are minus 295, totals 8.5. Lance Lynn for the Sox, Alec Mills for the Cubs. Mills is just 5-6 on the year with a 4.76 ERA and a 1.49 whip. The Cubbies have lost 5 out of their last 7 ball games, and they find themselves winning only 35% of their contests away from home. This Cubbies lineup is scoring just 3.9 runs a game when they bat first. Now, the Cubs are also being held to just 7.5 hits a game. They're taking on a first-place White Sox team who won 3 out of their last 4 ball games themselves, and they also rank in the top 5 in scoring on average per game. Timmy Anderson's batting .305, which is 9th in the big leagues. Meanwhile, Jose Abreu, he's leading the majors with 99 big RBI. The Sox have Lance Lynn on the bump here today as well. He's 10-3 with a 2.20 ERA and a 1.05 whip. Now, the righties also struck out 145 batters. The White Sox are holding their opponents to just 3.8 runs a game at Guaranteed Rate Field. And when it comes to the total in this one, 2 out of the Sox last 3 home games got over the line. 60% to the over in their last 10 outings at any location. Meanwhile, the Cubbies saw 6 out of their last 10 ball games get over the total themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the Chicago White Sox minus 1.5 and the over 8.5 runs. Next contest, Brewers, Twins, 7:10 East. The Milwaukee Brewers are minus 155, numbers 10. Adrian Hauser for Milwaukee. Charlie Barnes for Minnesota. Now Barnes is 0-3 with a 6.56 ERA and a 1.63 whip. The last place Twins have lost 5 out of their last 7 ball games, and they're in the bottom 3 in runs allowed per game. They're taking on a Milwaukee club who plays their best baseball on the road. They're currently 42-22 straight up when traveling, and they lead the majors in fewest runs allowed per contest on the road. Adrian Hauser is 7-5 with a 3.44 ERA. This Milwaukee pitching staff is also averaging double-digit strikeouts a game. Now, total-wise, Milwaukee's 34-30 to the over when they bat first. Minnesota's gone 81-47 to the over for the entire season. I'm going to lean toward the Milwaukee Brewers minus 155 and the over 10 runs. Next ball game, Nats, Mets, 7:10 Flushing, Queens. The New York Mets are minus 230, totals 8.5. Marcus Stroman for New York, Sean Nolan for Washington. The Nationals have won 5 out of their last 9 ball games. Top 3 in the league in hits on average per game on the road. Josh Bell and Juan Soto, they've each hit 21 home runs apiece. This Nationals lineup is also in the top 5 in fewest strikeouts per game at the plate. They're taking on a sputtering Mets club who lost their last 4 straight and also dropped 12 out of their last 14. Now, this New York lineup scores fewer runs than any other team in the majors at home. And they're also being held to less than 7.1 hits per game at Citi Field. And as good as Marcus Stroman has looked in many different starts this year, Stroman still comes into today's matchup with a lackluster 9-12 record on the year. Now, scoring-wise, New York went 9-1 to the under in their last 10 ball games, 4-0 to the under in their last 4 in Flushing, Queens. Meanwhile, 4 out of Washington's last 7 road games stayed under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Washington Nationals plus 1.5 and the under 8.5 runs. Next ball game, it is going to be Giants versus the Braves, 7:20 Eastern Standard Time. The Atlanta Braves are minus $1.15, totals 8.5. Huascar Ynoa for Atlanta, Logan Webb for San Francisco. Now Webb's 7-3 with a 2.84 ERA and a 1.13 WHIP. The righties also struck out 105 batters. The first place Giants have the best record in Major League Baseball. They also lead the majors in fewest walks allowed per 9. They're taking on a Braves organization who lost 2 out of their last 3, and they average nearly double-digit strikeouts a game at the plate. The Braves have also failed to cash in on the run line in their last 3 straight at Truist Park. And when it comes to the scoring in this one, 2 out of Atlanta's last 3 home games did get over the number. As a matter of fact, the Braves saw over 63% of their home games get over the total for the entire year. I'm going to lean toward the underdog San Francisco Giants plus $1 and the over 8.5 runs. Next contest, Pods, Angels, 9:07 East. The San Diego Padres are minus $1.25, totals 10. Ryan Weathers for San Diego. Jose Suarez for Los Angeles. Suarez is just 5-7 on the year, 4.06 ERA and a 1.31 WHIP. The LA Angels are on a 3-game losing streak, 1-6 straight up in their last 7. This Angels pitching staff is in the bottom 5 in runs allowed, and they actually walk more batters at home than any other team in the majors. They're taking on a Padres squad who's in the top 5 in the majors in road scoring. Fernando Tatis Jr., he's hit 35 home runs and knocked in 78. Now, Tatis is actually leading the majors with a 1.003 OPS. Meanwhile, Manny Machado's 11th in the league in RBI. The Sluggers hit 22 home runs and batted in 84. When it comes to the total on this one, the Padres are 11-3 to the over in their interleague contests this year, 6-3 to the over in their 9 interleague games on the road. Meanwhile, the Angels are currently 63% to the over in all of their home games for the entire year themselves. I'm going to lean toward The San Diego Padres minus a buck and a quarter. And the over 10 runs. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup. It is going to be Rockies versus the Dodgers, 9:10 p.m. Eastern start time. The LA Dodgers are minus 240, totals 9. David Price for Los Angeles. John Gray for Colorado. Now, Gray's just 7-10 on the season with a 4.13 ERA and a 1.30 WHIP. The Rockies are tied with the Rangers for the fewest road wins in the major leagues. They're currently 16-47 straight up when they travel, and that's good for a win percentage of just .253 in that category. This Colorado lineup has fewer hits than any other team in the league per game. They're also scoring just 3.2 runs a game away from Coors Field. They're taking on a Dodger club who won 8 out of their last 10 themselves, and they currently lead the majors in striking batters out. This Dodger pitching staff fans 10.5 batters a game at home, and they're allowing just 3.3 runs per contest at Dodger Stadium as well. David Price is 4-2 thus far in the season, 3.82 ERA along with 54 strikeouts. When it comes to the total in this one, 9 out of LA's last 10 ball games stayed under the line. 6-1 to the under in their last 7 at Dodger Stadium. Meanwhile, the Rockies went 60% to the under in their last 10 ball games themselves. I'm going to lean toward the LA Dodgers minus 1.5. And the under 9 runs. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our quick pick recap. Powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are 9-1 in our last 10 Major League Baseball tier package picks on that website. I like Boston minus 145, under 9 runs. New York Yankees plus $1, under 8.5. Seattle minus 150, under 8.5 runs. Arizona plus 1.5, over 8.5. Toronto minus 1.5, under 9.5 runs. Miami plus $1, under 7.5. Pittsburgh plus 1.5, over 8.5 runs. Tampa Bay minus 175, over 9.5. Houston minus 1.5, under 9. Chicago White Sox minus 1.5, over 8.5. Milwaukee minus 155, over 10 runs. Washington plus 1.5, under 8.5 runs. San Francisco plus $1, over 8.5. San Diego minus a buck and a quarter, over 10. Before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are 9-1 in our last 10 Major League Baseball tier package picks on my brockpage.com website. We're also hitting at 64% in our last 29 extra daily picks on that very same webpage. I like the LA Dodgers minus 1.5 and the under 9 runs. Of that, guys, now it's time for our shout out of the day. And that's going to go to Ronald Orr, who said yesterday, Brock rocks. I made a lot of money from your picks. Looking for a good year. And of course, Ronald's referring to the college football season, which is starting today. I'm very excited about that. But Ronald Orr, got to thank you for taking the time to drop me a comment in the comment section below. Really appreciate it. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. Excuse me. Now, if you guys end up getting a package here today, just keep in mind we're going to bill you the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today, you are going to get access to that content through the end of August. And then again, you're going to get billed on September 1st. I always tell folks the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Saturday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.